Good afternoon. I want to welcome Dr. Yong Chae, the head of our sport management program here at Washington State University. Really, the first thought off the top of my head, Dr. Rhee, is there any place in the country, any university, major Division I university, where the head of sport management and the director of athletics have Korean heritage, Asian American heritage, period?
That would be rare. Well, I mean, the thing is this. I think. Oh, again, I might have to correct you on head of the department because I used to be, and I have passed my baton to Simon Leachin. So I am not. I'm no longer. But at one point, we must have.
Yes.
Together.
Yes.
For academia, we've seen a lot of chairs.
Yeah.
With Korean descent.
Yeah.
But athletic director.
Yeah.
It's really, really rare.
I guess the first question off like really I was thinking about this earlier is sport management, because you went to school in Seoul, you went to university in Korea. Is sport management that big of a program in South Korea?
Oh yeah, sport in South Korea is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, it has a rich history with the 88 Olympics.
Yes.
And then Asian Games, and then World Cup, and then there's a lot of numerous global events hosted by Korean in Korea, and then from there, the business aspect of sport has grown tremendously. Korea actually have, during the pandemic, we have learned a lot about Korean baseball.
Yeah, yes,
flips and whatnot. Professional baseball is one of the largest sports. They have professional soccer, professional basketball, professional volleyball. So Korea is immersed with sports.
What drew you to the academic side? Like, what drew you to major in sport management in Korea?
So I served in the military, Korean staff too, mandatory. Yeah. So I was an officer, and then I served my country, and then I came back to school. And during my master's time, I actually thought about doing sport medicine. And I really went to China for that because back then, Chinese medicine and sport medicine was somewhat merging, and it was like making some progress in that route. And then 2002, World Cup took place in South Korea. And then I was interning part-time working with a company then, and then I really had an opportunity to work with Korean Football Association, KFA, like US Soccer of Korean version of that. And then I actually worked for a FIFA marketing for a brief moment for that 6 months. And then that opened my eyes, and then I really thought that I should go into this. I think I'm good at this, and talking to people, meeting with people, and then making those deals happen. And that's when I decided that I should go into sport management.
True story, not to get us off script here, but when I was in college, so my dad, I don't know how this worked, but there was confusion. I was born in Youngstown, Ohio. But when I was born, whatever registry that my dad did something in Korea where there was confusion if I was born in Korea or in America. So my dad calls me, I'm in college, I remember, because my roommates made fun of me at the time. Like, I had to send him my birth certificate because he needed to send it to Korea to prove that I wasn't born there, because I was at that age where I had mandatory military service, and my roommates knew me, I would not survive long if I had to do any type of military service.
You should be fine.
Now, what year did you come over to the United States?
So when I had an opportunity, my father was a company man, and then he was stationed in the United States for a brief couple of years, and then I had an opportunity to come to the United States in the 80s.
Okay.
And then we went back, and I came back in 2008. And I did my PhD then, and then I was doing my postdoc at University of Florida. That was great years with Florida athletics, back-to-back national championship with basketball, football.
Depends on what side of those championships you were on, because I was on the other side of.
True.
Yeah, where I cannot hear any Gator fight songs or Gator. I struggle. I had to struggle.
I don't play that anymore.
Games we do this, and football games. I had to like get myself to a place where I could start doing that because of the scars I have from those great Gator years that you're talking about.
Yes. So that was their Team Tebow, and I actually had Team Tebow walking into my classroom.
Yeah.
Like he was like lost, and he's like, "Oh, this is not my classroom." And it's like, "Oh, you're Tebow." So that was 2008, and then I started there working, teaching, and then writing my papers. And then 2011, I came to WSU.
Since you've been over in the country now full time over a decade, what does Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month mean to you?
After these uptick on the hate crimes and whatnot, I had to do something, and I organized a rally that you were part of. And then I got to learn a lot about AAPI Heritage Month. And I learned that it started in '78. It became a public law, and then the month-long celebration started from then. But what I learned is that while I was talking to public education educators, not a lot of people knows about it, rarely celebrated, and it really is something that needs to be celebrated. I believe that most hate words that AAPI is hearing at this point is "go back to your country," go back to China, mostly, for me at least. But the thing is, I think that comes from not understanding that AAPI have contributed to the growth of its country, and then this particular month needs to be celebrated to show that AAPI actually have contributed to the growth of the nation, and to be welcomed as a not tourist or whatever foreigners, but member of the community. So then maybe we could stop hearing "go back to where your community come from." I think so. This is something that really need to be celebrated, and I'm so glad that you're doing something like this.
Yeah, well, it's been I'm excited that this, like a lot of things going on in the country right now, we're fortunate to be in an environment around college students, and our student athletes really are pushing us to invest more and learn more about all the diversity that makes up Washington State and makes this place so special. And the unique path with you is you are an Asian American that works in sports in a pretty significant role, because our sport management program fuels us to a great degree. Not only do we have a plethora of student athletes within that major, but the students that major in sport management do a lot of our internships in and around the athletic department. What does it mean to you to be an Asian American Pacific Islander working in sports?
Looking into my students, and I've had my many student athletes, and then especially for those AAPI student athletes, they have I will have to say dual threats. One of them is you have to prove yourself as an athlete, and then also there's a stereotype being put on these Asian student athletes where you're Asian, you should be good at math, you should be good at studying, and so it's like in a way they're looked at in a two different route and in two different ways, and then those two different pressures make them a little more anxious, I suppose.
What challenges have you personally faced because of your race, and how have you overcome them?
It's a lot. I've had a lot. So like I said, I came over first time in the '80s. '80s were rough.
80s were rough.
Yes, '80s were rough. And then I was just talking to my wife about interviewing, and then she tells me about her story, because she didn't have that earlier experience. She came to state in 2010. So it's a little bit of a difference. Back then in the '80s, the most hated word that I would hear is "what." If I try to say something, those people in the other end would say "what?"
Yeah.
That just got me so hard. It just hurt my ego, hurt my pride, embarrassment, and I didn't want to speak anymore.
I've never heard that, but if they're like, my mom still works, and my mom like with all the stuff going on in the world right now, my daughter's like, why don't you get your mom to move here? I was like, my mom will not listen to one thing I say. She's going to work. She's going to live her life you just got to respect that. But where she works at a grocery store, and and that's what they're worried about is the mean people that she still has broken English. She's been in this country 50 years and she works her tail. She went to community college and took English classes just to improve her language. That's how much respect she had for this country to learn. But she still has broken English, and it's like those mean people that know what she's saying.
Of course.
Her English isn't that bad. And it's like, but they're saying what? It's like, that's just so disrespectful to do that. Yeah. Especially, and you're right. In the 80s, I tell my daughters too, they would not have survived growing up in the 80s. Being in grade school and in the 80s, like for me, I said, you could not have survived just the crap that you had to just go through.
Right. So again, what was the most hated word that scared me? So I was afraid to speak. And then I slowly overcame that as my English gotten better.
Yeah.
I still have moments, bad days with the English and whatnot, but still, that will hurt me. So it's just little things. You don't know what you should you really point that out and then call it the racism? Yeah. And make
what's the microaggressions when it's all said and done?
Casual racism, microaggressions,
absolutely, yeah,
piles on, and then it just hurts you. It gets you. Yeah. And then to this day, sometimes that happens. Like I mess up a pronunciation of a person or of a company or something like that, and then students or faculty members or whoever around me will go, "What?" And that's just it hurts again. And I think in the same realm, my daughters are experiencing something similar.
Yeah,
schools, because they were born and raised in the United States and they have been to Korea a couple times, but because of the parents, like they learn from us, so they sometimes have this, mistakes they make in the grammar or the pronunciation. They would still hear it. What would you say? And especially when they eat something, traditional food, something like that. That happened to me when I brought kimchi to school. That was a bad idea in the 80s.
I wouldn't have even thought about that.
Exactly. But I was living with grandmother, and then she's like, "Yeah, you need to pack your lunch." And then she got me all these kimchi and like the 70s lunch for Korean people. She did that to me. When I didn't even know, I opened it up. I'm like, oh gosh. They're like, oh my God, what'd you bring?
Yeah.
Somebody died in here.
Yeah.
So again, it's this, and then it's hurtful, but in everyone else's eye, it's playful.
Yeah.
Joke, never meant to hurt anyone. It's just they're telling people that what they felt, but again, piles on.
It does.
Yes, this microaggression or the casual racism, it's hurting, and something has to be done. And like I said, 80s, now 2021, still the same.
Yeah.
So yes, education has to take place to make sure that something like that happens.
What do you think has improved for those in the AAPI community since you started working in higher ed? What do you think has improved for Asian American, for the AAPI community within higher ed?
I'll have to say a lot has improved.
Yeah.
The evidence of that will be you. Evidence of that will be Kim Ang.
Yep.
And that's a great stride that has been made.
Yeah.
But still, there could be big things that made changes, but there's still like small things that happens to every Asian Americans in the country or AAPI community. The microaggressions, that hasn't changed. Should there be an improvement? Yes. And then where does that come from? I think it should come from education and then voicing. And in the 80s, we didn't have any voice.
Yeah.
If you get, called out, called at something, ching chong, like slanted eye, whatever, it'd be like, oh yeah, we'll take it as a joke. I get you. If you're trying to be funny, okay, I'm okay. That was my response. Now, finally, it seems like we have a voice.
Yeah.
And especially the voice is coming from not the activists, but athletes. Athletes are, strong social voice, and then they are actually making noise and making sure that, this is not right to be treated that way or treat other people based on how they look. So I think there's been a change. And then, like I said, big changes happened. And then you and Kim Ming, they're tremendous leaders of the industry.
Yeah, and you're right. It is nice. It does warm my heart when I see a Steph Curry or Dame Lillard, and there's a bunch out there that are using their platforms to bring awareness to stop Asian hate. It does bring pride, because there was a time and a place where that just didn't happen. And knowing that, hey, we're all in this together. The one thing, the one thing we all have in common in this country is we are all different.
Exactly.
And what makes this country great, or what's going to bring us to our knees, is can we meld together with all of our differences? And by the charter of this great nation, it should be, hey, we're melding together because of our great differences.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone from the AAPI community that wants to break into the sports industry or wants to go into sports management?
I'm gonna have to tell them it's gonna be tough.
Yeah.
Because there are ceilings, and then you'll have to break through. And then I just the other day I spoke to one of the PhD students who's ready for the teaching job. So he's interviewing. He have interviewed multiple times, and then he contacted me and asked for advice. And then what I told him was, so I kind of listened to him, like, so what would you say? What was asked and what was your answer? And then what I've noticed was that their self-esteem is so low. As an international student, AAPI descent, working and making it to that level of having a PhD, you must have worked really, really hard to get there. And then you are discounting that so much. And then you are blaming yourself for your imperfect English. Yeah. Maybe that's why I didn't get it. Maybe how I look. Maybe, I said something wrong. Maybe, but you have to be proud of what you have accomplished thus far, and then you have to advance from there. But if you don't recognize what you have done this far, then, advancing might be even tougher, because when you get into the industry, getting into industry is tough.
Yeah.
But, thriving in the industry is going to be tougher. So like I said, with the Asian AAPI student athletes, they have to, deal with two different stereotypes. One is you are never going to make it, or you should be good at something. So the same goes for other who wants to make it. You have to trust what you have done and what you have to achieve thus far, and then you have to go from there. I think that's what I told this person who asked for my advice, and then I'll have to give the same advice to.
That is great advice about trusting what you've done and trusting where you're headed. I mean, at the end of the day, there is a little bit of blind faith, but like anything worthwhile achieving in life, it's never going to be easy. Is there something you're most proud about your family heritage?
Yeah, I thought about that, and we're so average. Like, we're not really special people. But one thing I can agree with what you said in the rally was, my parents were hardworking middle class company. He dedicated his life to get me, my brother, better education, and he had to do a lot of different things to make that happen. And to this day, I am here in the United States teaching at a prestigious university like this, and working with you, talking to you. And my brother works for a Korean company, Korean Air, to reject. And then he is, working really, really hard. So I will have to say that our heritage about my family is about work ethic and hardworking. We are hardworking middle class, to provide for our family. I think that's something to proud of. Have pride for.
We always preach humility with our three daughters at home, and my mom, to your point, she keeps scrapbooks about everything about me that's out on her kitchen table. She brags to her friends at church, and and my daughters and my wife are like, you let her brag, you let her do what you want. She is the grandmother. She's allowed to, but that work ethic piece, though, I heard someone say this one time, and I think one of the great values, at least for me, growing up in an immigrant family is, and I think it's what helped me in sports, is sometimes as an immigrant, you're raised this way. And I know my parents did it. You're willing to do jobs that maybe other people aren't willing to do. And I know that served me well growing up at Ohio State, is there wasn't a job I wasn't willing to do at that place. And, fortunate for me, that environment, the people in power noticed that and kept providing me opportunity. But there are benefits from being raised in that environment and that mindset that our parents really instilled in us. Last question, is there a favorite traditional meal or holiday growing up? And I know the Chuns need to come over to the Rhee house for a Korean dinner.
I know.
Yeah, we will. My daughters are they are mad at me that I have not taken you out, but we have not found the time to do it. But is there a favorite meal that you have or holiday growing up?
So every New Year, Koreans call it, we celebrate Lunar New Year.
Yeah.
And we call it the Seoll날.
Yeah.
And on Seoll날 Day, we have the mandu.
Yeah.
It's to better explain it, it's Korean style dumpling. Mandu. And my wife makes very mean mandu. And maybe COVID blows over, and then when we have an opportunity, we can have mandu together. Mandu is about
family, absolutely.
Right, celebration, and then about good fortune. It's about the meaning of that dish is about sharing the good fortune amongst people who gather together for the new year. So I think that'd be a tremendous meal for us if we could get together someday.
Yeah, well, we will set a date for that. And Dr. Rhee, I appreciate your time and I appreciate you sharing. And on behalf of every Asian American here in our Pullman community, for those who don't know, Dr. Rhee organized a rally centered around bringing awareness to the hate crimes for the AAPI community. And I know how much that meant to me. I know how much that impacted my daughters and my family. And it's leadership like you on our campus and our community that are making a difference. So we're fortunate to have you here in Pullman. We're fortunate to have you here at Washington State, Dr. Rhee, and I thank you for your time, and go Cougs.
Go Cougs. Thank you so much for having me.